Welcome to Bread and Butter, the show looking behind the scenes of the food and drink business. I'm Wendy Hargraves. It's been a devastating week for Melbourne's hospitality industry, already on its knees before Sunday's extended lockdown announcement by Premier Dan Andrews. Now, industry leaders are predicting up to 40% of hospitality business could close as a result of Premier Andrews' determination to reach zero transmissions of the COVID virus. Today on the show, I'll ask three hospo leaders how they're pushing through lockdown, thanks to our show's partner, Hungry, the Aussie tech company helping restaurants and cafes thrive. We'll have Lune's Reid and Chin Chin's Chris Lucas coming up soon, and we'll also cross live to LA to talk with Grant Smillie, the Melbourne restaurateur, showing Hollywood how it's done, opening restaurants and venues despite the pandemic. But first, let's look at this week's news in food and drink, brought to you by Hungry. Restaurants and bars are reeling from Victoria's extended lockdown, which prohibits indoor dining until the entire state has gone 2 weeks without a single COVID-19 case. Business leaders and Melbourne Lord Mayor Sally Capp are pressuring Premier Daniel Andrews to drop the zero case target as thousands of businesses face closing for good. Victorian pubs have reported losing more than $2,000 a day while shut, with little hope of improvement before the end of the year. Paul Waterson, who runs the nation's second biggest pub group, the Australian Venue Co, has stood down 1,200 staff in Victoria, with substantial mental health issues among staff as a result of the extended lockdowns. Meanwhile, 2 historic pubs in Melbourne's west have closed for good, and industry leaders fear they won't be the last. Seddon's Mona Castle became the latest casualty of the lockdown this week, closing after 140 years of operation, and Williamstown's Morning Star has also shut after 131 years. Melbourne's CBD offices have shut down, leaving hospitality businesses with no choice but to close their doors in the city. And I would, at this moment, be crossing right now to Chris Lucas, who has several venues in the city. However, Chris has actually been pulled over by police on his way to work, and he's unable to get to his computer right now, but he's promised he'll be coming to me as soon as he's arrived. And by the way, he was pulled over to have his permit checked, not for anything else. So now I'll cross to LA, which is in the midst of a massive heat wave right now. So I'd like to introduce the amazing Grant Smillie, who's showing LA exactly how Melbourne does its hospo. How's it going, Grant?
Doing great. Great to see you.
Yeah, great to see you too. So what does COVID normal look like in LA at the moment?
It's definitely different to what Melbourne is. Well, clearly we've had a bit of an interesting governmental approach to coronavirus, which is pretty much every man for himself over here. But currently we've got no indoor dining, exactly the same as Melbourne. What they have done is use some of their, wisdom to allow outdoor trading, given a certain set of conditions, social distancing, masks if you're not seated, all those kind of things. But what it has done is allowed us to, continue to trade, to even launch a new venue, which we recently did. And, I'm hearing rumblings that perhaps Melbourne might adopt a similar outdoor approach come summertime, but we're about to head into winter. So it's going to be an interesting time to see how we can, again, navigate that period of time.
Of course, yeah. So now you, for people who aren't aware, you also have a venue in Melbourne, in Ponyfish Island, which is one of the most innovative venues in Melbourne in that it's built under a bridge on the Yarra River opposite, between Southgate and Flinders Street Station. You've been doing some renovations there,
Correct.
So clearly you have high hopes for the bar scene in Melbourne. What have we in Melbourne got to learn from what's going on right now in LA?
Look, the parallels are really interesting. For me, I think the outdoor space and nature of Ponyfish has given us a really, while I guess it's advantageous, it's never been more advantageous to be outdoor. People, I think they're going to need some time on the therapy table to go back into restaurants, some of these people, because they've been so used to staying at home and cooking for themselves. But there's nothing like, going out and having a meal. So for us, we had promised our staff for many years that we were going to renovate. We were committed to this timing irrespective of the coronavirus. But funnily enough, it's even more apt in a timing perspective now to be doing this. So when Melbourne comes out of the other side of this, hopefully there's something new to experience, because I don't think there's going to be too many restaurants out there opening new things this year.
Yes, I think you're right there. So we've been looking at footage while you've been chatting of your venue in West Hollywood, EPLP, EP and LP. So how's it going there at the moment with COVID restrictions in place?
Look, it's a challenge. I mean, you're using more staff than you ever would before. You're taking less revenue, which is not always what you want. But look, the good news is we've got a line down the street that operates every day. There's certainly no shortage of people wanting to go out and dine and drink. We are not allowed to trade our rooftop cinema, which is on the other half of our rooftop, even though it's an outdoor space, and you would think that logic might prevail, but they've sort of got a mandate across all cinemas that they can't trade currently, or in our Lake County anyway. So we converted our cinema space into a pop-up called Los Palmas as a Mexican-inspired space, and we've managed to get an extra 140 seats outside. So we've got nearly 300 seats upstairs now on the rooftop. So we're one of the lucky ones. Well, you can't have events, you can't have Sharon's birthday, sorry Sharon, but you can't have more than 6 people at your table, and that's just the nature of the beast. But if you're prepared to accept that and then try and figure out, now we're saying maximum 2-hour windows for table turns. We're really strict on credit cards and making sure not getting ducked on reservations, because but we're lucky we can sort of, there's a demand on the street to be able to fill any empty spots. But you certainly got to look for every single dollar out there, because the rents aren't going down, the costs are still staying high, and it's just a survival thing. We know winter's coming, so you're just trying to put as much in the kitty as you can to get through that next period of time.
Well, it's from a Melburnian's perspective, it sounds like paradise if you're able to have more than 100 people in one place sitting in the LA sunshine. What would you like to see happen here? There's been a lot of criticism of our Premier, Dan Andrews, and the way he is locking down business opportunity here in Melbourne. What would you like to see the Premier do?
Look, I mean, I think the zero transmission is not reasonable. It's not actually achievable. Even you've seen from New Zealand, they thought they had it done and it's going to come back. And look, until there is that silver bullet, and whenever that might happen, um, we can't be held to ransom for the fact that there will be coronavirus. We're going to have to learn to live with it. And I think that's one thing America has done, is they just have to learn to live with it. Look, we know that there's enormous death toll over here, I'm certainly not trying to undermine or underplay the seriousness of this illness, and it is a serious one. But I think wearing masks, having social distance, we're an industry that prides itself on cleanliness and on hygiene. And I think personally, there's no better place to be than in a right now. Um, I'm sure that most of the operators would take whatever we could get, but I think a zero transition rate is unattainable. It won't last, and I just don't think it's a tenable outcome for anyone.
So give us a bit of good news then. Can you paint a bit of a picture of what we're going to see at Ponyfish Island when it reopens, whenever that may be next year?
Sure. I mean, hopefully this year. I'm hoping for this year. We'll see. I'm an optimist. Look, we have got Studio Graham out of Adelaide. They're a great bunch of dudes who have designed a beautiful space. We've got a lot of sunshades inspired from time in Palm Springs. It was originally literally a school portable that was parked under there. So it didn't have the amenities that you would require. So we've actually got power to even do things like ice machines, which you couldn't have before. We'd had daily ice deliveries for the best part of 8 years. So we can actually then have a fully functioning kitchen. It's going to be beautiful. It's going to be commensurate with what the location is and what we've always wanted to do. So we've finally got the power there we needed to do. We've got the permission to be able to do what we wanted to do down there. So I think finally this will be that world-class outcome that we've been looking for in the middle of the Yarra River. And we're very excited to show off our wares, whenever that may be. It's going to be good to have something new and positive to look back forward to.
Yeah, that's right. If you ever get to travel back to Melbourne, it must feel an awful long way away at the moment. I think I might have lost sound. Can you hear me?
Gotcha. I got you.
Oh, fantastic. I was just saying that, have you got any plans to come back to Melbourne in the near future, or is it just too hard?
Oh, Wendy, I'd love nothing more than be back there for the opening of this thing. It's a challenge. Like I've got another project here called Grandmaster Recorders that's pretty much finished, and we have to now park it until April. No one wants to be paying the enormous rents and that we have. We bought Monty Kaludrovic from Icebergs and Jackie over here to open that, and we were supposed to be open already, but with it's 1,000-person capacity, of which half of it's indoor. We can't open that this year. So as much as I'd love to come back and open Ponyfish, I think the month that it's going to take to do that, it'll be a challenge at this point in time. There's certainly I'm missing traveling. I'm missing Melbourne. I'm missing the camaraderie of our network back there, and I'm in daily contact with a lot of operators and chefs back there. And I know it's tough, and I'd love to be able to stand there shoulder to shoulder. But I've equally got an election on November the 3rd that we're nervously awaiting to see the outcome, and still trying to navigate the daily ongoing issues with hospitality.
I can only imagine. So have you got any other plans? Actually, first tell me about the plan that you have in LA, because it sounds like you're timing your opening for the Oscars. Is that right?
Yeah, well, sort of event award seasons, we sort of need something. This will be the largest format restaurant opening in LA, or probably California for that matter, for next year. It was slated for this year, as I said. So it needs to open with a bang. So we'll be partnering with the Oscars, Vanity Fair, or one of those large format parties to open it. It deserves that celebrity fanfare to welcome it to Los Angeles. And
oh man, that's a long way. So, that's a long way from DJing in Melbourne. How far you've come! It's amazing.
Yeah, yeah, you never know. We do have in the old Grandmaster recording building, we do have a studio that's the reason why we ended up taking, well, part of it was my nostalgia. This is where Bowie, Blondie, the Chili Peppers, Foo Fighters, yeah, Kanye all recorded in here. So
exciting.
We're celebrating that legacy, and we're gonna speak to Dave Grohl and see if we can't get him to shut down the street in front of it and play with the Fooey. So we'll see how we go. But I have come a decent way. So it's been a bit of fun.
Best of luck with that. It's great that how big you dream. It's fantastic.
Go big or go home, Wendy. I'm hopefully not coming home soon.
Well, good luck with everything. Best of luck with the opening of Ponyfish Island and with your new venues in LA. Thank you so much for your time, Grant. That was Grant Smillie, coming to us from Hollywood, where he has an amazing venue called EPLP, and it has big plans for more. My next guest is Chris Lucas, who's the founder and CEO of a string of top Melbourne restaurants, including Chin Chin and Kisume. He joins me now. Hello, Chris. How's it going? Okay. Can you hear me, Chris?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Fantastic. Yes, I can. Thank you. Now, I believe you had a bit of a spot check on your way to the office this morning. Is everything okay?
Just the usual sort of stuff we're getting used to in the police state of Victoria.
Oh, goodness me. Now, they're running out. Aren't the state government permits running out? Did you have any issues with the date?
No, I think to be quite honest, I think the police are feeling quite uncomfortable about the job that the Premier is asking him to do.
Now, you've been working very closely with the state and local government to find a solution to this, and have become quite a vocal critic of Premier Dan Andrews in every media outlet that will listen. So what's it like dealing with the government on this issue at the moment? Because I'm sensing a fair bit of frustration.
Yeah, I mean, Wendy, I'm not really necessarily a critic of Mr. Andrews personally. I've got nothing against the man. I think it's a pretty difficult job that he's trying to execute, but I just think that he's going about it the wrong way, and I quite frankly think that the issue that I have is his plan. The 0 transmissions for 14 days before the restaurant industry in Victoria can reopen, or in Melbourne, is simply not a plan. It's not a realistic plan, and it's not one that a lot of, in fact, to be quite honest, there's not a scientist, I don't think, in the last few days that's come out and endorsed that plan.
So what exactly do you want? What do you want Dan Andrews to do?
Well, what I'd like him to do is to do two things. I think that it's critical that when you've got the lives of 6 million Victorians in your hands, and you're prosecuting an argument or a plan, that it's incumbent upon you as a leader, as a politician, to work with the community. Mr. Andrews is asking us to follow him blindly over the economic cliff into Armageddon because he says it's going to save lives. But as all Victorians, and I'm certainly one of them, of course we want to save lives. Who doesn't want to save lives? I mean, we all have parents and grandparents and elderly friends who we don't want them to get sick. But on the other hand,
I understand all that. But if you were in charge, if you had the reins that Daniel Andrews has, what would you do?
Well, I'd be talking to community leaders. I'd be talking to business. I'd be talking to experts in their field, world-class experts, such as Sharon Levine, the professor from the Doherty Institute, that has a plan. A realistic plan that's supported by global experts in epidemiology and virology who are saying that you can safely strike the appropriate balance between health, looking after the elderly and the needy, and opening the economy. And you can do that somewhere around 20 to 30 infections as a daily rate, which is the number that Mr. Andrews prosecutes. Now, of course, I should also add that Mr. Andrews only talks about one particular number, which is the infection number. There's a lot of other data behind those numbers that need to be provided to add context to actually what is a very complex issue. The other thing that I would be doing if I was the leader is that not only, as I said, would I be bringing on board the community leaders and in fact the community at large, rather than dictating to them and trying to enforce a curfew which, quite frankly, is unsustainable. And as it turns out, yesterday, the Chief Medical Officer made a statement that the curfew was not a plan of his, and he was not generally supportive of it. He thought it might be a good idea and it might work. So then, who did come up with the curfew idea? Because, as I said to you, a lot of the world-class experts that have gone public in the last few days have really questioned whether a curfew has any real dramatic effect on the spread of the virus. So,
can I ask, Chris? Sorry to interrupt. If we can actually get these changes through, and restaurants and bars and cafes can start sticking the toe in and doing a little bit more trading, for a lot of businesses, they'll be starting from scratch. What do you think that the hospitality industry needs in order to kickstart again, which is, as you know, a bit like starting a business all over again when you're reopening? So what is needed? What do you want the likes of Lord Mayor Sally Capp and Daniel Andrews to actually give you guys to help you get started again?
Well, to be realistic, Wendy, all we need is a plan to open. We'll do the rest. So I think there's this mantra going around that somehow they can keep us shut for an extended period of time and then, they'll come in with all this money. Mr. Andrews has offered up a small pittance to businesses, $5,000 and $10,000 to every business. Businesses are losing, like ours, and in fact the entire restaurant industry is losing billions of dollars. But more importantly, Wendy, there's 150 to 200,000 jobs that are going to be lost in the hospitality sector between now and December. Now, what we don't want is we don't want government handouts. We want to open our businesses. We want to re-employ our kids, get our kids back to work so that we don't suffer the mental anguish and the enormous, significant mental issues that are being faced throughout the workforce and the community. So we just want to be able to open, and we want to be able to open in a balanced and responsible way. And outdoor dining with 10 seats isn't the answer. No one's going to buy into that. That's a ridiculous plan, and of course it was done without proper consultation. This was an idea dreamed up by public servants. And this is a classic example of the government not talking to business. Now, the other thing too, Wendy, is you asked me what I would do if I was Premier. Well, it's in quite a simple way. If you look at New South Wales has got world-class contact tracing and cluster management, and it has got its economy open, and it's suffering somewhere between, 15, 20, 25 infections a day. but it's got all its 7 million people living there are not under curfew, they're not wearing face masks, and the economy is up and trading, and so are the restaurants. And employment has boomed, as it has in Queensland. So the restaurant sector is back up and going, and it's not relying on government handouts. There's no amount of government handouts that can solve the monumental economic and social and mental problems that we are currently facing through these quite dramatic lockdowns and curfews. These policies, by the way, have been now defunct globally. There's experts in Germany and London and Europe that are coming out and saying that the lockdown policy is a flawed policy. It doesn't work. It wreaks too much damage throughout the community. And Wendy, I'm fearful for the 380,000 mostly young people that work in our industry. This is not just about business. In fact, quite frankly, this is turning into a humanitarian issue. There's 6 million...
Sorry, I'm sorry to interrupt. You've been very vocal on this issue. I have one last very important question to ask you. And then I'll across because I have Kate Reid waiting. You'll have to excuse me. My microphone's come off. There you go. My microphone fell off. Sorry about that. One more very, very important question. Are you angry enough to have a stab at politics?
No, that's not my job.
Well, listen, on that note, thank you so much for all of the work that you're doing in the hospitality industry and standing up for the little guys out there that aren't being heard. I really appreciate your time, Chris.
That's all right. Appreciate it. And I hope Mr. Andrews is listening to us, because I really do fear for the entire hospitality sector and what's happening to us.
Fantastic. That was Chris Lucas, the founder and CEO of the Lucas Group of Restaurants. From one very grumpy restaurateur in the city, and who can blame him? Now we head to the back streets of Fitzroy, where you'll find a woman described as the best croissant maker in the world. I'm talking about Kate Reid, co-founder of Lune Croissanterie. Welcome to Bread and Butter, Kate.
Thanks so much, Wendy. Nice to see you again.
Yeah, it's great to see you too. Now, you are the bright side of the COVID shutdown because, and I know there aren't many silver linings, but we no longer have to queue up in long lines along Rose Street, Fitzroy, to buy one of your croissants. And that has to be a good thing.
Well, it's maybe a silver lining for everyone that doesn't have to line up, but it's obviously changed the way we do business drastically as well. So
tell us how that works.
How it works, how we get croissants to people now.
How are you doing it?
Well, I think it's important to note that we noticed a very big difference in the first round of lockdowns to the second round. I think in the first round of lockdowns, even though there was this fear around the unknown of this virus, I do think that there was an element of novelty, like, oh, we can work from home, and you know, this is new and different. And I think people were still happy to come out of their homes and line up at Lune. Even though our stores were closed for dine-in, you could still take the product away. And essentially our product is something that is designed to be put in a box or a bag and taken away and eaten at home. So the difference that we noticed in the second round of lockdowns was that I think everybody thought, oh, this is pretty serious now. God, here we are going into lockdown round 2. I miss my colleagues, I miss my friends, I miss my normal life. And we saw a very drastic downturn in the people that actually wanted to leave home and come out. And so we had to adjust our business model, and we were lucky that we had the facility within the restrictions to be able to continue to deliver the product out there. When the restrictions were first announced, the delivery model that we had was delivering to suburbs sort of within a 5-kilometre radius of Lune. And that was working pretty well. And then when stage 4 restrictions were announced, we had a bit of a light bulb moment where we realised that there was absolutely no point delivering to the people within 5 kilometres of us, because they were the ones that were actually allowed to come to us. And the vast majority of Melbourne out there was now restricted and they weren't allowed to come and visit us. So we changed our model, and rather than delivering to all of the Melbourne metropolitan area, which was completely unfeasible for us, I mean, we're using our own staff who have been repurposed as delivery drivers. So maybe people who used to work front of house or baristas that we don't need anymore because we're not offering an in-store service. They were doing deliveries, and we don't have an army of delivery drivers. And so instead of going all over Melbourne, we just thought maybe we'd try this thing called suburbs, and we'd pick 1 or 2 lucky suburbs every day that we'd drive out there. It doesn't really matter then how far we're traveling, because once we're there, all the drop-offs are within a pretty small area of each other. And it's been a really big success for us. It's been amazing to see the spread of where our customers come from all over Melbourne. And I'm actually the one that manages the Lune Instagram too. And it's just been fascinating to capture, like, who are the people out there that come and line up? Like, I don't get to stand at the counter and chat to them every day, but I get to chat to all the customers on Instagram and find out how far they normally travel to come and line up for us. So it's been lovely to flip it and be able to deliver to them. And
it creates a sense of urgency, doesn't it, when you say, okay, this week we're going to Ringwood. It's like, we're in Ringwood, let's order. Do you think it's actually, creating a little bit of excitement that it's, you're in their neighbourhood?
I think it's funny, like, I know that a lot of my staff follow along on the comments of the posts that we put up on Instagram every day, and I've discovered that some of the customers have started following along the comments too, because you get people that are so excited that we're finally coming to their suburb, and then you get large groups of people rooting for their suburb. We've had people change lyrics to songs, like begging us to come to their suburb, and there's been real engagement with, like, the online community of Lune customers and fans. It's been a unique experience, but a really special way to connect with our customers in a time where we can't see them in our store enjoying the croissants.
So speaking of restrictions and not being able to do what we used to be able to do, what would you like to see Premier Daniel Andrews do for the hospitality industry? How would you like to see this play out?
I think from a personal perspective, I've been very lucky with our business that we have been able to continue to operate. I think it's been heartbreaking for me to see my friends and peers in the industry who have not been so lucky, and they haven't had a product or a model that was able to fit with the new restrictions. I think it's difficult for me because, like, honestly, when the new restrictions were announced, or the extension of them, I don't really know that he had that much choice, because if we were going to ease restrictions, it would have felt like the last 2 months was just a waste of all our time, like shutting businesses and being locked up at home. And like it's like committing all of this to a cause and then just going, oh, well, that didn't work. Let's just scrap it.
I really do. I feel your pain there, Kate, because I think it's a really different perspective in hospitality where, it's not all about opening. I do understand that. Now, I'm really sorry I want to keep talking to you for ages, but we've run out of time. So I'm so sorry, Kate. It's always fascinating to hear what you're up to, and I look forward to chatting with you again soon, hopefully in person. Thank you, Kate.
Thanks, Wendy. It was lovely to see you.
Oh, thanks, Kate. That was the amazing Kate Reid, co-founder of Lune Croissanterie. You've been watching Bread and Butter, brought to you by Hungry Hungry. I'm Wendy Hargraves, and I'll see you on Friday with more food news with Alana McLean on Ticker News. Until then, eat well and stay safe.
Stream us live on the Ticker app, Apple TV, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube and tickertv.com.au. Ticker. Streaming news now. The world is changing fast. What was is no more.